The morning the sirens hit Cedar Lane, I was on my new dock with a mug of black coffee, listening to thin ice crackle across the cove. I hadn't lived on water in years, not since Dad took me out at daybreak and taught me that a quiet lake tells the truth if you let it. This one was an old mill pond behind the tannery, 30 acres. It's cattails and herons, a rumor of bass that grew lazy because nobody bothered them. I bought it clean and legal. Recorded the deed myself. I thought I'd bought quiet. Turns out, I'd bought a fight patrol car, slid past the private lane sign, and fanned across the cul-de-sac like a raid. Red and blue washed the willows in the hull of my John boat. Marching in front, of course, was the HOA president, Carol. Windbreaker zipped to the throat, chin lifted like a badge. She'd called them. That was the first sting. Not the sirens. But a neighbor waving down the law on my shore, like I was the trespasser. I walked up from the dock, boots ticking on boards. "Morning," I said, as even as a handshake. That's how I was raised. "You don't shout if you know you're right. This is a common amenity," Carol announced, voice clipped. "You can't put up a gate. You can't control access. You can't restrict boats. You can't, ma'am." The deputy tried to cut in. He had the patient eyes of a man who's seen too many living room wars. "We got to report you're blocking residents from the community lake." "It's not the community lake," I said, handing him a folder. "Deed, survey, a 1958 map showing the mill pond boundaries. Non-navigable impoundment, abandoned by the original owner, conveyed with the damn parcel. I purchased that parcel last month. Title's clear. The HOA never owned it." Carol's lips thinned. "We've used it for years. Kids fish there. My grandson learned to kayak there." "I'm not stealing anybody's childhood," I said, steady. "But this isn't a clubhouse. It's land and water with a chain of title, same as your house. Folks have been launching without permission, crossing the dam, cutting ruts, leaving beer cans. So yes, I gated the access road and posted the spillway. I'll host neighbors when it's safe by permission. But this," I nodded at the strobes, "isn't how we start. The covenants grant riparian access," she snapped. "The covenants can't grant what the developer never owned," I answered. "And the original plat never deeded the water body to the association." County clerk confirmed it. I saw the deputy shift from confrontational to curious. He thumbed through my documents, raised his radio, stepped aside. While he verified the parcel numbers, Carol floated closer, voice low and sharp. "You won't win," she whispered. "We always get our way." It cut deeper than I let on. It wasn't about a chain or a John boat. It was about people who think rules they wrote can overwrite someone else's history. I felt my grip tighten on the mug. For a heartbeat, I saw Dad's knuckles on a wrench and heard him, "Son, they're stubborn." And there's right. 2 more board members buzzed up in golf carts. Neighbors gathered in pajama pants and fleece throws, phones held high. "He chained our path," someone shouted. "That spillways? Dangerous? Who's liable?" Another. A little boy clapped at the pretty lights. "Reputations don't come from facts," I thought. "They come from scenes." The deputy came back, handed me my papers, cleared his throat. "Dispatch confirms the parcel numbers in damn deed. Lakebed appears to attach to his tract by meets and bounds. Civil matter." He turned to Carol. "Ma'am, unless you've got a court order, we can't make him open the gate." She bristled. "Then write him up for blocking an easement." "Show me the recorded easement," he said, calm as dusk. She had newsletters, meeting minutes, traditions, but nothing stamped by the Register of Deeds. That's when my anger cooled into disbelief. How many years had they acted like ownership was a vote you win by showing up? "Listen," I said, softer. "I want to be a good neighbor. But the bank's collapsing near the culvert. Kids have been climbing the damp face. The spillway drop will break your back. Liability is real. For now, the gate stays. You want access? We set rules, safety waivers, hours, trash cans, depth markers. I am not your enemy. You're cutting us off, she said. From our lake? From my lake, I said and tasted the bitterness. Territorial. Dad would have winced. The deputies rolled out. The crowd thinned, muttering. Carol pointed a stiff finger at my chest. See you at the board meeting? She hissed. Or in court. When the cul-de-sac emptied, I stood by the new gate and watched taillights fade down Cedar Lane. The cattails hissed. The lake lay older than any covenant, older than us, all a mirror of sky and hard truths. I wanted quiet. I had a war brewing. I took one last sip and felt something settle. Not fear, resolve. If I had to fight, I'd fight with paper, patience, and water law older than their bylaws. Down at the dock, a blue heron lifted like a gray flag. It circled, glided to the far shore where millstones still sleep in the mud. That's when the calm hit me. If they wanted rules, I'd bring rules they couldn't bully. The ones written in federal ink. That night I cleared dinner plates. Opened Dad's wooden toolbox to feel the weight of honest steel. Then sat at the kitchen table with a legal pad and a stack of books. At the top of the page, 3 lines like a prayer. Know the water. Know the law. Protect the lake. I started before sunrise. House still as a church. Kettle rattling like an old pickup. Steam rising off the first pour like breath in cold air. I opened the laptop and lit up a dozen tabs: County GIS, Registry of Deeds, State Environmental Quality. Then the big ones. U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Title 33 of the Code of Federal Regulations. And a field guide to ordinary high water marks that reads like scripture. If you love maps more than arguments, I built a binder. Blue cover. Heavy rings. Dividers like guardrails. DAD survey, chain of title, state riparian law, 33 CFR, 328 waters of the U.S. USAC permits. Dam inspection. The more I read, the calmer I got. Not because it was simple. Because there was a path, and it didn't care about newsletters or who talked loudest. In my words, plain. If a water body is non-navigable and entirely within private land, the bed can attach to the DID tracked by meets and bounds. If it connects to navigable waters or has tributaries, federal protections kick in dredge and fill wetlands. Impacts, but that doesn't hand an HOA the right to trespass or manage like a pool. The Corps cares about what you move and what you dump. The state cares about dam safety and fish. Access is property law. And property still means something where I'm from. By mid-morning, I added photos my shoreline. The dam crest, the spillway drop, the snapped rail kids climbed, the bare turnaround where trucks carved ruts that bled mud into the cove. I printed the covenants and highlighted common areas deeded to the association. Then stapled a blank page where a lake deed would be if it existed. Sometimes silence is your best exhibit. At 11, the email I expected. Special board meeting, lake access, and violations. Tuesday, clubhouse. The subject line felt like a glove slapped across my porch. I replied, I'll attend. Please add ownership and safety liabilities to the agenda. Over lunch, I visited the clerk. Teresa's known this town longer than any developer. Back again. She smiled, sliding out an old deed book like a family Bible. We traced mill tract to mill tract. Drawdown rights. The pond described back when the wheel still turned. Looks clear to me, she said. The knot in my chest loosened. At home, one more tab in the binder, correspondence. I drafted a neighborly but firm letter deed copies. Maps and immediate safety concerns. Undermined bank at the culvert. Missing handrail at the spillway. Submerged stump at the old launch. I proposed a temporary moratorium on general access until stabilization. No motors. No night fishing. No crossing the dam. Access by permission. Then, a plan for a community cleanup once the dangerous parts were fixed. Not strategy, Hope. I slid the letter into Carol's mailbox. Saw her in the window, arms crossed, jaw set. Some folks see an outstretched hand and swear it's a fist. I nodded anyway and walked off, gravel steady under my boots. Tuesday arrived like a storm you watch all day on radar. I wore the good denim shirt, my wife says. It makes me look like I know how to fix things. The clubhouse smelled like folding chairs and old coffee. Bored at a long table, name placards neat in a row. Residents packed the seats, murmuring. A few gave me the small nod of people not ready to pick a side in public. Carol called to order. First item, unauthorized structures and access limitations at the lake. Mr. Harper installed gates and signs. This violates our spirit and our covenants. I set my blue binder on the podium. The thunk echoed. I kept my voice neighborly. I'm not here to fight. I'm here to keep kids safe and protect a lake. I bought the damn parcel and, by deed, the attached pond. I brought copies for anyone who wants to read. Here are the covenants, which do not include a deed to the lake. And here are the federal and state guidelines, because if we're going to do this, we'll do it right. I flipped 2 photos, the undermined bank, the spillway drop. A woman in row 2 gasped at the eroded edge where her grandkids had stood. I explained ordinary high-water marks in plain English. I tapped the page when I said Title 33 so folks knew I wasn't inventing numbers. I talked about dredging permits, why dumping gravel to make a beach could trigger federal issues, and how one bad decision could invite a letter nobody wants. A man in a ball-cap mic from Birch Court stewed. So you're saying we never owned it? I'm saying it was never deeded to the HOA, I said. But I'm also saying I'm not building a moat. I propose a small committee to stabilize the bank. Mark safe zones, said ours. Schedule supervised fishing days, and require permissions for launches. I'll sign waivers with volunteers and pay for signage. Carol leaned into the mic. The board moves to require immediate removal of the gate. I held up the survey. You can't legislate over property you don't own, but you can work with me. Or we can hand it to lawyers and make it ugly. Silence. Then murmurs. Then the tired laugh of relief. Mike raised his hand again. I vote we work with him. Tentative claps turned real. Carol bit back a lemon. But the room had shifted. She cleared her throat. We will. Entertain a motion to form a committee. Motion. Second. A few nays. More yays. I sat, hands steady on the binder. For the first time since the willows lit up red and blue, I felt justice settle like a dockboard finally seated. Afterward, a grandmother named Ruth came with tears like dew. I'm sorry for the talk, she said. My husband worked that mill when the wheel still turned. He'd be glad someone's looking after the water. I walked home under a cold sky. The lake lay dark and honest, stars soft on the ripples. At the gate, I ran a hand over the chain. I wasn't naive. Emails would fly. Sideways comments. Power plays dressed as policy, but the fight had a shape now, and I had a binder and a plan. Before bed, I slid the blue binder onto the shelf beside Dad's toolbox. Paper and steel, knowledge and work. That pair will take you far. 2 weeks later, we held the first workday. I brewed a vat of coffee in a dented percolator and set out donuts on a folding table. 10 neighbors showed up 15 by the time the sun cleared the pines. Mike in the cap. Ruth with her grandkids. Even a board member who looked like she'd slipped out a side door. We put on gloves, passed trash bags, and dragged enough plastic out of the reeds to shame a summer. A heron watched from a deadfall like a judge. I kept it light. If you find a chartreuse crankbait, it's mine. Laughter rolled and took the edges off. We set new posts by the spillway and hung a proper chain where the rail had rotted. I'd bought depth markers. We screwed them into a cedar brace while one of the boys called out numbers like he was keeping score in a game that finally made sense. Around noon, Carol arrived with a clipboard. She stared at the chain across the damn path like it was an insult carved in stone. You can't stop people from walking across, she said to the air. To the world she preferred. We agreed at the meeting, I said gently. No access across the dam until an engineer signs off. Corps' guidance is clear structure integrity first. I don't need a federal agency telling me how to enjoy a lake that's been here my whole life. She snapped. It was here before any of us, I said softly. That's the point. For a second, her armor cracked. Maybe a memory bread ball bluegill in a grandfather's gentle hand. Some fights aren't about bylaws. They're about holding on to what was good. Look, I said, low. I'm not erasing anyone's past. I'm trying to make sure there's a future where a kid doesn't fall through a washout. Bank because we argued about a gate. Help me, and I'll put a bench out here with your grandkid's name by spring. Her grip loosened. A bench? Cedar. Nice plaque. I'll cover it. Something shifted. Not much. Just enough to let the wind under the door. That afternoon, the county dam safety engineer came by. I'd invited him and the sheriff's community liaison because paper is good, but eyes are better. He walked the crest, TS-cased at the undermined section, nodded at our temporary chain. Good call, he said. He pointed at the cattails where the old path had scarred the bank. Keep feet off a season. It'll heal. I'll write a letter recommending limited access until repairs. That should quiet things. Quiet, I said. That's the dream. We watched water fold over the spillway like brass pages. He tapped our depth board. Professional? You a contractor? Just a man who hates doing things twice. He laughed like we were already friends. 2 days later, his letter arrived. I slid a copy under a new tab agency, findings, and emailed a PDF to the board. Per our plan. Safety restrictions remain until repairs. Cleanup number 2 next Saturday. Coffee on me, there were grumbles. Subject lines like overreach and not what we voted for. But there were also nods in driveways, kids waving from bikes. The side of mouth thank yous to tell you people see you even when they can't clap out loud. We posted rules the old-fashioned way, simple and fair. Daylight hours. No motors. No glass. Launches by permission. I say yes more than no. We just know who's out there and when. I kept a ledger by the back door with dates, names, and notes about when the bass came shallow. Saturday mornings, neighbors started bringing kids to fish off the dock. I taught a boy named Eli to thumb a bait caster without bird nesting. He listened with both ears, the way my boy did at that age. One evening at golden hour, footsteps on the dock, Carol clipboard tucked under her arm, not writing a thing. The water was lavender. Pretty, she said. It is, I answered. Always has been. My dad brought me here before the houses, she said. We used bread balls for bluegill, small laugh. We always said we'd clean up the shore. Never did. We're doing it now, I said. Late, but not too late. She nodded. I'll bring hot dogs to the next cleanup. I let the silence sit like a well-set anchor. Thank you. In the weeks that followed, the lake changed in those small ways you only see if you walk it every day. Water at the culvert cleared. The cattail scar softened with new shoots. The heron fished closer, as if it trusted us again. Folks started treating the water like a gift instead of a right. That's all I wanted. At the next board meeting, Carol read the engineer's letter into the record. You could hear she didn't love it, but she honored it. Then a motion I didn't expect. Enter a cooperative maintenance. Agreement with the lake owner for safety improvements and scheduled access. It passed easy. No cheers. Just relief like watching a storm slide past your field and seeing sunlight on the far hill. I walked home slow, not wanting to spook a good feeling. At the gate, I rested my hand on the post. Beyond it, the lake lay quiet, a teacher waiting on students who finally shut up long enough to learn. I thought about Dad, how he kept his word like a polished tool, never flashy, always ready. I'd defended what I own, yes, but also what we share when we remember we're neighbors first. Safety, respect, and a place worth handing to the next set of small hands holding a cane pole. The bench went in that spring, cedar and smooth. The plaque carried more than one name: Ruth's husband, Eli's granddad, and, at Carol's request, her father. She cried honest tears. I looked away and gave her that privacy. When she sat, I sat too, a few boards down, both of us facing the water that outlived our arguments. The lake was calm again, and for the first time in years, so was I. Sometimes standing up for what's right means learning the rules well enough to protect everyone, especially the ones who fought you first. Have you ever faced an HOA like this? Share your story in the comments. I read everyone. If you believe some fights are worth having, hit subscribe and let's stand up together.